And we continue learning 5 minutes of Tefillah. Yesterday we began a Chilui, which as we mentioned yesterday, are the three additional Lashonos of Tefillah from the Yalkut to Chilui, from the Lashon of the Pasuk of Vayechal Moshe Pnei Hashem Elikav. And we learned yesterday that Chilui is a type of Tefillah of arguments, that we're pleading our case. We're as if standing in the courtroom and we get up and we argue and we demand and we tell Hashem why we want things to happen and why they should happen and why we're in need of certain things. Quite a difficult thing for the average mind to fathom. That's what tefillah is. Why is it so difficult? It's so difficult because we're talking to Hashem. We're talking to God. He knows everything. And as Shimshon Bingis articulates, and he says, there's a big question over here. He asks, whichever way you look at it, if that which you're asking from Hashem is good, why do we have to ask Hashem for it? He'll do it. And if it's not, Hashem knows everything, so what you're as almost telling something to Hashem He doesn't know, and if what you're saying is not good, so then why say it? Meaning, when we think about what we spoke about yesterday, we come to a little bit of a roadblock, that we're arguing our case. That works with mortals, that works in a court, that works that we could get up and we could explain to the jury, to the judge, why something should or should not happen, why one was guilty or not. But we're talking to the all-knowing, we're talking to God, and we're going to explain to Him something? How does that make any sense? But explains the Shimshon Bingis that this form of tefillah is precisely to do just that. Now that might sound wild, but he proves this. The Gemara in Bava Kama, a fascinating Gemara. The Gemara there teaches us that the daughter of Nechunya, Chayfer Shichin, that was his name, she fell into a pit. So this girl, who her father was a well digger, the daughter falls into a pit. And they came to Rav Chanina ben Daisa and they said, Rebbe, it's terrible. How could it be that this guy, he digs wells for the sake of the public and his daughter is going to be harmed? And Rav Chanina ben Daisa said, it's not possible. There's no way that this, excuse me, I said daughter. I don't think it was her daughter. Yeah, it was her daughter. There's no way that she's going to be harmed. No way. And Kachave, the daughter, wasn't harmed. But the Gemara continues, but his son ended up dying from thirst. End of Gemara. A little bit of an interesting Gemara. Again, the daughter fell into a pit. Chanina ben Daisa said there's no way that his daughter died from falling into a pit. The father was one who helped the public out by digging wells. There's no way that the daughter died in the way that the father helped the public. But then the Gemara ends off that the son died from thirst. Asks of Shimshon Bingis the obvious question. Isn't thirst also connected to wells? So shouldn't we have the same question? Hashem, the father supplied everyone with water, and the son is going to die from a lack of water? So explains the Shita Mikubetzes a fascinating answer, which really explains to us this type of tefillah that we're talking about. Explains the Shimshon Bingis, when Rav Chanina ben Daisa davened, it was a tefillah that he turned to Hashem and he said, Hashem, it's impossible that this girl could die from falling into a well because the father helped the public by digging wells. That tefillah of Rav Chanina ben Daisa was answered, and therefore the daughter did not die in such a manner. However, explains the Shita Mikubetzes, the son died from thirst later on. At that point, Rav Chanina ben Daisa was no longer alive. The tefillah of the tzaddik was not there to beg and quote-unquote show Hashem the reason that the child should not be harmed, and therefore the child was harmed. So we see from over here that in as much as we might ask, Hashem doesn't know everything? Of course He does. But built into the creation was that one could daven by a mannerism of arguments, of convincing, and when one does, then what happens? Hashem listens. And that's the reason why when Chanina ben Daisa said, the son cannot die, he didn't die. When Chanina ben Daisa was no longer around, therefore there was no longer that tefillah. So we see from over here that even though it might seem interesting that how could such a thing be true, this was built into the Bria, built into the Teva, was this, that only when the tzaddik says such could it work. And if not, we'll elaborate on this point further. Amir Tzah Hashem.